Hello, hello, and welcome to Talk About It Tuesday. I'm Tosca DiMatteo, founder of Tosca Coaching and Consulting, and I am so thrilled for the conversation that we are going to have today around redefining purpose and identifying transferable skills. I'm here with a very special guest full of so much light and wisdom and love, LaToya Goree. And she's going to be with us momentarily, so just hang with me while we bring her on. I'm really excited for this conversation because I think it's going to help a lot of people. We're going to talk about Toya's journey of rediscovering her purpose and unhooking from her identity as, as being an employee, of unhooking from this workism that so many of us experience these days. I'm just thrilled for you to be here. And hi, Toya, so glad you're here. I just was introducing you a little bit and how excited I am. So I'm going to bring you on. Let's get it going. Let's get it popping. Yes. Let's hope this tech thing works. Get you on here. There we go. Hey.
Happy. Just gonna do a little adjusting here.
Yeah. Let's make it look good. Yeah. Yes. On this dreary day here in New York. But thank you so much for joining. I'm so glad that you're here, and welcome to those who are coming into the room. I just so appreciate the time that you're giving to be on this platform, to share your story, to be in service of everybody watching now and after the fact, because I know you have such light and love and wisdom to share. And I think a lot of people need to hear what you have to say. So I always just kind of hand it over to my guests for them to introduce themselves, because I feel like I'm never going to do it justice, but just share who you are, where you come from, and whatever you want the audience to know about, the depth of you, and we'll just kind of take it from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tosca. I am so happy and grateful to be here first and foremost. Hi to everybody who's joining on. So first and foremost, my name is LaToya. My name is LaToya Goree. I am Detroit raised and Brooklyn made, as I like to say it. I am the daughter of Bernard and Joanne Goree. I am from Michigan. I'm a Midwest girl living in New York. I am a lover. I am a doer. I'm an entrepreneur. I am an advertising financial industry expert. I am also a ministry worker. I am a Christian. I am a Black woman. And I stand in everything that I am. I am multifaceted. That is what I am. So if anybody wants to know who LaToya is, she is multifaceted.
Wow, I love that. I love all these I am statements, and I love how you just own and embrace all of it. And I love when you call yourself a lover. I just can go so many places with that. But no, it's amazing. And tell me more about that piece, being a lover, what that means to you, because I know it's just so rooted in your beliefs.
Yes. So what I mean by when I say I'm a lover, yes, could that go many different places for sure. But what I mean when I say it is it really comes from the foundation of my faith and the foundational element of who I am. Like I mentioned, I am a Christian. I'm a follower of Christ. And one of the key components and one of the scriptures that I stand firmly on is it says to love God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, all your body, and love your neighbor as yourself. So that is the greatest of all commandments. So for me, being firmly rooted in that is the catalyst for everything that I do. It has to be the foundational component of everything that I do, everything that I say. So I really hold it deep to my heart. So when I say I'm a lover, that is exactly what I mean. I love God. I love people.
Oh, yes. And is it hard for you sometimes?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Okay, I was like, because it sounds good. Let me do that all the time.
Yeah, no, for sure. But you know what? Love also is something that stands in the face of fear. Love is something that stands in the face of adversity. So it doesn't mean that it's easy, right? Love is something that is you put it forth. It's an action, right? It's not just this fluffy thing that I can say I am or say I do, but it's something that you press forward on. It includes forgiveness, it includes standing in truth, it includes so many elements that in this human life that we live can sometimes not be as easy. But the key is to really press forward in love. So if you're doing that, then essentially you're loving, right?
Yeah, and
Even when it's tough.
yeah, and one of the, you talk about love of God, love of your neighbors, and where does self fall into that for you? Like,
Yeah, so I'm made in God's image, as
mhm,
we all are. So to me, if I'm loving God, right, that's going to reflect back to me. If I'm loving my neighbor, that's going to reflect back to me. So the reality is, in the ways that I pour out love, it has to, one, come from a place that I've already established it within myself, right? And then I also know it returns to me. So it doesn't have to be that I'm operating out of this place that's lacking, but I can actually operate out of a place that's pure as possible in this human life, right?
yeah, and I'm gonna just pause on this a little bit if you don't mind. We go into that because like this idea of it has to start with loving yourself first. Um, yeah, like that's like a journey in and of itself, let alone being able to give it, right? Like,
Absolutely. And for me, honestly, that came with knowing God, right? Because for me, as a Christian, right, I believe that God has created me. I believe that God has created us. So if I want to know myself even better, I go to the source for that. And then through that journey, I start to recognize things about myself. I start to learn things about myself in light of God, in light of myself, in light of this world, and figure out how I want to show up, right? And in that, so it becomes this thing where it's establishing this root within me, but the original source of it is God.
mm,
So there's this ultimate supreme being that is establishing this thing in me that I'm finding out as I'm doing this life journey, right? That we're all trying to figure out as we're doing this life journey. So I think it's exciting, right? It's challenging, it's difficult, but it's rewarding at the same time. It's very rewarding when you see that return. So
yes, yes, and sorry, just as you're saying that, shout out to Shagay, who is the connector of us even meeting.
hello,
um,
yay!
I love how, rare is the case where you kind of get invited to a brunch with nobody you know and like you just love everybody that's there and they're like it's like that's what happened. Like Shagay invited me with her friends and I met you and I was like, "Oh, this is like a love fest." Um
Exactly,
um
exactly.
and there's something you know because faith is such an important part of you and how you operate, who you are, and what you believe in. Like, is it easy for you to talk about that with people? Because I'm just assuming that maybe there's like challenges with sharing that in every space. And so, like, I'm just curious how you navigate that. Is it hard or is it just like, it is what it is? Either you're with me or you're not. Like, you know what I mean?
I completely understand what you're saying, and it definitely is something that can be difficult at times. But I think about what am I leading with, right? Am I leading with that love? If that love is a component of whatever I'm sharing, no matter where I'm sharing it, then the reality is it's going to become less daunting. It doesn't mean it's necessarily easy, but it's definitely less daunting, right? So, of course, there's times where in a work setting, a corporate setting, in a setting where, all the individuals may not be Christians or none of the individuals may be Christians. I've been in that setting numerous times. But it is also a component of me. And I leave space for people to be who they are. And I hope and pray that they leave the same for me. So what I can't do,
Yes.
what I can't do is hide that part of me or like quell it or try to quench it, because then I wouldn't let people know who I actually am. And that would be a disservice to myself, right?
Mm.
And in ways that would be a disservice to them, because who knows what I can share with them that can actually be a catalyst to them finding out things about themselves,
Yeah.
learning, growing, and vice versa, right? So I have to show up with all of myself.
Mm.
I cannot allow the fact that some people may have got it wrong in the past. I may have gotten it wrong in the past, saying certain things in certain settings. But if I find out the way to say what I need to say, be a representative of Christ in any setting, then I truly believe that I can do that from a loving place. And in that scenario, everything's going to be okay, even if someone doesn't agree with me.
I feel like it could be a wrap right here. I feel like if you take nothing else from this conversation, just, yeah, but like how I just think that, there's we are so, like you said, you're multifaceted, we're all multifaceted, and can we be vulnerable and share ourselves? Can we go into situations and honor that we don't know what's possible when we share our truth
Yes.
versus carry our baggage or carry even our own experience or whatever, but to just hold space that like today is different from yesterday, and so
Yes.
what could it look like?
What you just said right there, today is different than yesterday. And what could it look like now in this time, in this space? There's mercies are new every morning, right? So there is something new about each day that we have not encountered yet, we have not dealt with yet. And it could be so beautiful. It can also be difficult, but even in that difficulty, beauty and love can still reign true, right?
Mm.
So it is definitely a matter of, not bringing in the baggage from before and really truly taking the day and seizing it and walking in that day. And, if it's a matter of, doing better than the day before, that's part of it. If it's a matter of letting something go from the day before, that's part of it. Whatever you can do that gets you closer to freedom and walking in love, go for that.
Yes, freedom and love. I talking my language, and I think it just makes me think of we all get burned. We've gotten burned, and so I'm just juxtapositioning what you're saying. I'm just like kind of playing advocate, right? Like
Yeah, for
there's
sure.
juxtapositioning, right? That like burn me once, shame on you, twice, shame on me, and show up in love and not knowing because we don't know.
Yes, yes. And what you're saying is so real. I mean, there's definitely the sense of having past situations and experiences that we all carry with us, but what are we carrying from it, right? Can we identify what we're actually carrying? Are we carrying the hurt? Are we carrying the pain? Or are we carrying the love or the lessons to be learned or the wisdom that came from that or the forgiveness that needed to come from that situation? What are we actually extracting from these burnt experiences?
Yeah. This right here is everything. This right here is everything. And this is really getting at the heart, I think, of what you want to talk about today, right? About
Yeah.
identifying purpose or redefining purpose, because to me, I think that the part of the reason why people feel trapped is because, or not free, is because what they're carrying with them. And how do we unload that, unearth it, how do we heal from it, and all that. So I'd love for you to share, you know, what is it about like purpose and redefining it and understanding transferable skills? What is it about this topic that is so near and dear to your heart, and why is it one that you want to share with the world?
Oh my goodness. It is such a huge component of what I believe and who I am, right? So if you were to ask many people what their purpose is, what do you think their response would be?
I think it feels really big, and they're like, I don't know.
I think a lot of people will say I don't know, but I also think if people had to give an answer, most people will answer with their vocation,
Mhm. Right, yes, that's
which
their
is very
work.
it's exactly they're going to answer with what they do as work, right? And when you think about purpose, what is the actual definition of purpose, right? It's really your central motivating aims for your life. Now, if you were to give that definition and then ask people again, the same people who answer with their work, Do you think most people would want to say that literally their work is their central motivating aim for their life? Like that is it's a lot of weight to put on your
Yes.
work.
Yes.
Granted, what we do as work is important. It's a valuable aspect of our lives, right? A lot of times we say we're going to spend more time at work than we do anywhere else, right? Within our life. But think about your purpose and think about unhooking that, actually unhooking your vocation from your purpose, but thinking about what your purpose is and how does your work become a vehicle for you to deliver your purpose. Because now if you're defining your purpose, which is greater than work, right? You're actually then, you can then think about all the aspects of you that help you to arise to your purpose. And then you can think about the different vehicles in which you can drive and carry out your purpose within your life. Only one of which is work. Only one of which is work. The rest is your relationships, it's community, it is all the different aspects and components of what makes up your everyday life, right?
Yeah, it's like I think we're indoctrinated in this culture, in this country, that work is at the center of all. And I think that that's caused so much dissonance, disconnect from self. And even why we're in this situation with the great resignation and people being like, wait,
Yeah,
what am I doing? Like this isn't fulfilling me. Like life is bigger than this. And so I think a lot of people, but it doesn't mean it's easy to really
yeah,
pull back and say, well, why am I here and what am I here to do? Like that's like, the
for
epic
sure.
question.
For sure. And I think that comes with understanding the definitions of that, right? So one of the things as far as we're talking, defining purpose or redefining purpose, because of that very reason, you mentioned the great resignation, which is happening now and has been probably for a couple of years. And, we're definitely seeing the major effects of it now, is people becoming disillusioned with their work because their identity and their purpose was wrapped up in it. And now we're seeing the disconnect starting to happen, right? People are looking for more fulfillment.
Yeah.
So in order to find that, and I think when we say, what is your purpose? It is definitely a daunting question. It's a
Yeah.
very, very tall order to answer that question. But I think if you redefine it, you're closer to being able to answer it, right? If we have accurate definitions, then we can actually get to better solutions on it. So if we think about it and we say, okay, now we're experiencing this disillusionment, people are resigning at higher rates than we've seen in a very long time, then we can say, wait a second. So is it that my purpose is different than what I thought and why I'm now experiencing this unfulfillment in work? Okay, so let's take it back, scale back a bit, and let's actually say, well, wait a second, maybe my purpose isn't my title at my job. Maybe my purpose isn't this corporation that I work for. Maybe my purpose actually is greater than that, right? And therefore, if I'm only looking at fulfillment in this one area or one aspect, which is my job, that's why it's not getting there. That's why I'm not getting fulfillment, because I am literally putting one drop in a bucket, a full bucket of life, and I'm putting one drop in and saying, oh, that's supposed to serve my purpose. And then you're like, why am I not full?
Right.
So,
I,
no.
I was just gonna add also, it's hard to feel full when, for example, at work, it's a lot of giving and not necessarily receiving in those environments. I mean, hopefully you're receiving, but like when there's imbalance there,
Yeah.
and you're only looking for the fulfillment from the pat on the back or the
Yeah.
external validation and all that stuff, it just exacerbates why we're not feeling like, our cup is full. But I'm sorry, I know I interrupted what you were saying.
No, what you said was just key in regards to, it's this relationship a lot of times that we have with work where we're giving, giving, giving. But let's pause right there. What are we giving for? What are we racing for? Do we not see, is our work relationship with our employment or with our employer or our job, is it not in the proper perspective, right?
Mm.
Is it that I'm working out of fear And therefore I'm creating this imbalance, or I'm working in this place of discontentment where I'm pushing, 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 and there's an over ambitiousness, right? Ambition is good, but even ambition out of balance can be detrimental, right? So then do we look at that relationship and can we actually say, wait, first of all, my work experience, my relationship with my employer, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. This is something that is a give and take, right? So then you can look with clarity. You can look at your workplace with clarity and say, okay, wait, how are we operating in this place? What is the actual environment that I am? Am I being set up in an ultra competitive environment that is extremely unhealthy and toxic because I'm not coming in with the right mindset, or what was sold to me in this place of employment is not actually what's happening or not true?
Yeah. Oh man, I was just on a panel today talking about the disconnect between employer branding and like actual culture, you know? And so you get in there and you really don't know what's happening until you get in there, because people can
Yeah.
say, but until you know how your boss is with you, you just don't know. And even then, you may find out much later, which I know we're going to talk about. And Sarah's here saying, like, I'm giving out of expectation, yet my expectations are rarely met. It's definitely one-sided. Yeah, that'll drive a
Yeah.
person to like crazy. Wow. Yeah. Like, so how, so how did this, this wisdom, I mean, there are people that like have so much to learn about this, about unhooking from work, about really understanding how they're viewing it in their total life, and like what is it they're walking into. And so, you know, where did this kind of understanding come from for you? Like your journey with that.
For sure, yeah. So for me, it happened twofold, right? In two different ways. So part of it is just the rooting foundation of Christ. Like there's so many scriptures in the Bible that may not speak directly to, oh, in your corporate office, but they so speak to the sense of purpose. They so speak to total life, whole life. They speak to all aspects and components of life, right? So just going back and maintaining being rooted in Christ is just a matter of that purpose coming back to loving God and loving people, right? So then if I'm doing that, my work now becomes a vehicle for loving God and loving people. Now, how does that show up there? So I work in finance. My day job, 9 to 5, financial advisement and PR and marketing, right? So with that being said, what is my purpose at my job? What is my true purpose? It's to make sure that we're a company of integrity. It's to make sure that our financials are on the up and up. It's to make sure that we're following rules and principles and laws, that we're audit compliant. And if you think about it on paper, it just sounds very job, very wordy, very job. But if I'm carrying the love that I truly care for all people, then actually I should be bringing that to my workplace as well. And me really thinking about how I do my work, how I interact and collaborate with my colleagues. How do I show up, despite how they may be showing up, right? Because then you got personal integrity to maintain as well, despite how anyone else may be showing up. How do I show up in that space, right? So I think the principles that I've learned from my faith in Christ allows me to transfer those principles to every aspect of my life, including work. And then it also has come from experience. It's come from experience of being in terrible working environments, cultures that were promised but were lacking. Definitely toxic situations, even where, how do you show up then? We were talking earlier about what does it look like when you're trying to love, or you're trying to carry, or you're trying to hold love, even when you're at work, but it's hard to. You're met with adversity, you're met with troubles, you're met with different situations. In my experiences, I've gone through it. It's not foreign to me. It's not just been rainbows and butterflies. I've been in situations where, there's been racial tension. There's been derogatory comments made based on race and based on being a woman. you know, and I've had to stand up to those things. And through that, I've learned and I've even built integrity, right? Mm. There's a scripture in the Bible, if I could share it with you guys.
Oh, please. Yeah.
Yeah. It's in James. It's a letter that James wrote, and it says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kind, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance."
Hmm.
And standing on that, I learned so much about things. We live in a world where people are not going to always be perfect. There are going to be people who are just straight up mean, who do things that are wrong, who lie, who do all these different things. But the reality is, when that happens to you, is your response going to be in kind to them, or is your response going to be kind? So are you going to just do what has always been done to you, or are you going to actually say you're going to show up differently? And if that means that this isn't a place for you to stay, that you go, then, you know, you do that. And that may take some time. It may not be instant, but you do that as well. Or do you also learn whatever you need to learn in that lesson and move on? And that goes back to what we were saying at the top, right? We were talking about being burned. Mm-hmm. And what do we actually take from those situations when we are burned? Do we take the bitterness, the resentment, the anger, the unforgiveness? Or do we simply take the lesson that people are going to be people? People can be operating out of fear themselves. I can't control somebody else operating out of fear, and therefore that's why they've done to me whatever they've done. I can't control that. But what I can do is I can forgive. What I can do is I can learn. What I can do is I can pay attention to how people are, learn some people skills, learn some insight to red flags. I can take all those things, and that's wisdom.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I'm just here. I'm like, I'm like the audience is absorbing this. I can feel it. Like people are taking notes. So it's like I feel like you've shared so much that needs to sit in a way for people to really like hear what you're saying, right? Kind versus in kind. Can you forgive? Can you learn? Can you pay attention, right? Learn the people skills. And I just want to honor, right? Like, I know that what you're talking about is like having been through the fire of like the worst of humanity in your workplace environment. And you know, well, being a woman who is a lover, you know, who is very aware of these principles of integrity, and so, you know, I'd love if you're willing to just share, like, you know, how did you decide what to do, right? Because like you like people do, you know, I think people can easily feel trapped or easily feel like I gotta fix this, or like, you know, there's like a plethora of things which at the end of the day people end up staying in toxic places too long, and creates more trauma on top of the trauma they already experienced. So I'd love to hear what your journey was about when you were in these toxic environments and these situations. How did you get out of that? What was your path?
Yeah, no, you bring up such a very big point. And honestly, the journey is not without trial and error, even in the situation, right? So it wasn't just like a breakaway in the fact of, okay, tomorrow I'm over this. Not me. I'm out. Like, peace out, I'm leaving. So it definitely wasn't that. There were the components of, I'm going to be a fighter. There were the components of, somebody has to stand up. Who's going to stand up? Like, I guess I have to say something. And knowing that even in standing up, honestly, there was even a doubling down of adversity thrown at me. It just, you know, some things become even more toxic. And it was a matter of, I will say, you know, there was a matter of about 6 months before I actually broke away from that environment. And part of it actually came with having to grieve what was there. You know, this is a company that I actually have still to this day a lot of friends at. A place where, you know, there was nothing for me to work a late night. You know, it never was that I was being forced. It was something I actually enjoyed, being in this space, right? So it was an enjoyment in what I'm doing, but now these things are happening from a racial injustice standpoint, from derogatory comments being made about women, where it's like, well, wait a second. So where does my personal integrity stand in this? Like, am I just going to sit around and let things go on? Do I just not say anything because I'm good? Like, I'm very comfortable in my position. Do I just let things float by? And it would weigh on me so much that it came to a point of like, I actually can't even look at myself in the mirror. Like, it's feeling like I'm living a double life. Like, I'm giving to this place and I'm not saying anything, even though I know wrong things are happening right in front of my eyes. I'm hearing things all the time, every day, and I'm not standing up. And then it became, you know what? You trust in God. You know who you are. And while these things are taxing, let's devise a plan. Like me talking to myself. like, let's devise a plan, girl. So do all you can here in this space to try to help this situation become better, to even expose it for what it is. But also, you could do two things at once, hopefully, if you can. Sometimes it's so emotional that you can't. But if you can, try to do two things at once and advise your strategy, your exit strategy, right? Because you see what's happening here. You see that this isn't changing. You see that you can stand up as much as you want and lend to that, and know that you've done what you can do here. Stand on that. Still show up in your personal integrity, still show up for who you are, get the job done, never let that falter, but do what you need to do. So what I did was I actually dug deep into purpose, right? Going back to purpose, loving God, loving my neighbor, and thinking about those transferable skills, which is key, that I had, that I could transition to another workplace, to entrepreneurship opportunities that were coming towards me. Like, what could I actually do, right? Because now I'm in this position where I'm like, oh, I'm probably not going to stay here. So, but
I'm out. Deuces. Yeah. Yeah.
But I still need to eat. I still need to take care of myself. I, need to take care of people around me. So I'm like, okay, so how do we do this? So then I started thinking about, what is work? Your company, your corporation, your job does not own you. It's a contractual agreement. So you have certain qualities and intellectual properties of your skills and talents that brought you into this space and made you very capable in this space. So realize you could also be capable in so many other places. And that comes with recognizing that that particular title, that particular job is not your identity. So I actually went back because I just wanted to take a break from the industry at large. I was like, it's the industry. It's all of it. It's everything. So I was like, I really need to take a break from this. And, one of the things that I've done for the majority of my life is dance. I've been competitive cheerleading, competitive dance, Michigan State University, shout out
Green
Motion, a member of Dance Team Motion there. And I actually linked up, because I'm also a connector and a collaborator, people who I've taken classes from, studios that I frequented, and I started teaching. In that in-between time, my transferable skill, my skill and my know-how and my backup actually allowed me to literally be able to sustain myself and not miss a beat, because I was able to take those skills, revive them, and put it into action and do something with it. And I honestly, it's a blessing. I thank God for that. I thank God for that opportunity. So I would honestly tell people who are in the situation, that are looking at transitioning out or needing space to heal, right? So perhaps see what else that they can do in the meantime that could actually help them, because obviously it's not you're looking at your source of income. So you have to be realistic about that. And, have your savings plan. Saving is always important. You should do that without even this being a situation, So maintain your savings, find other resources, other avenues of income.
And well, first of all, there's so much right there. And just even on this financial piece alone, I remember, at one point that I had left a job, and I think I was talking to like a therapist, and I was just like, I'm using my savings, and like, oh my God, it's like stressing me out. And she was just like, well, what is your savings for? And I was like, Oh, right.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, like it can be really scary, but yeah, like,
yeah, for sure.
yeah, like it's, you know, what I'm hearing about your journey, and I know like we had a pre-call and so we got into some depth there too. But just to kind of pull out the nugget, which is like, you know, you had always kind of been smart and financially aware and like created something for yourself if you had, you know, a time where you needed to rely on that. At the same time, you stood in who you were and what was good for you and what was not good for you, and you knew like, hey, this isn't worth it. You know, like this isn't for me. You know, they made it very clear, right, in their actions. But in a way, it sounds like, you know, when you left, you didn't know exactly what you were going to do, but as you're speaking, like you had these other skills that you ended up leaning on and being a support for you emotionally and otherwise, you know, financially. But I think that stepping away is so hard for
Yes.
people to take that leap of faith when you don't have something in pocket. And I know Ashley here is just was saying she literally resigned from her job for some of the exact reasons that you mentioned. So I'm curious for you, what was that journey of like leap of faith, knowing that you are a woman of faith and not everybody has that even to kind of know that there's a net that they can't see that's there, but how did you come to that and just say, I gotta go, you know?
Yeah, you know what? It was coming down to I try not to live out of fear. I try not
Mm,
to operate out of a place of fear. And when I had to come to the decision, I was going in that direction. Like I started feeling myself being like, well, if I stay, what am I
mm,
really staying for? And when I was honest with myself, it's like you're staying because you're fearful.
mm,
So once again, coming down to personal integrity, and then from the faith aspect, you know, God is available to everybody. So,
mm,
so some people may not have faith now, but you know, a situation could be the catalyst to
yeah,
what actually grounds you in faith and
mm,
connects you to God, and you see how you know He's worked things out for you. I
mm,
also think it also comes in a very real aspect of it is community.
mm,
It's community. You have to have relationships with people. You have to be vulnerable with people to let them know
mm,
what's going on in your life. And I had amazing, you know, my family's awesome, amazing girlfriends, my church family, my brothers and my sisters, like everybody, where I remember times where in the situation it would be so frustrating sometimes in the office that I would literally go to like a freight elevator or in the bathroom stall and be talking to one of my best girlfriends on the phone
mm,
like, girl, like, I really don't, like, I literally feel like I'm about to walk out right now. Like it's just no. And you know, people talking me down from the ledge, reminding me who I am when I
mm,
couldn't remember for myself. Sometimes that happens as human, and that's nothing to be ashamed about.
mm,
Sometimes we forget, or sometimes we're so, not necessarily that we forget, but we're so blinded, or the pain is so bright, or the
mm,
pain is so big that we don't realize how bright our actual light still is
mm,
inside of us. And it takes somebody reminding us that. So I honestly believe it's really, you know, sitting down and getting support from your community, realizing what you're standing on, defining what you're
mm,
operating out of. Is it love? Is it fear? And really then sitting down, being very practical, being extremely
mm,
practical. Like, what are my actual skills? What are my marketable skills? What are my transferable skills that if I wasn't in this industry, that I could actually take to this industry or that industry, right? So being a financial expert, I'm able to help friends with small businesses. I was able to help them establish their P&Ls and, you know, organize themselves for the start off of their businesses
right.
during that time, while I was also teaching dance and bar and fitness classes. You know, I'm able to take these transferable skills, collaboration, hosting dinner parties, doing all these other things where I'm finding other fulfillment,
Mm,
where this situation may be toxic and may be unfulfilling and is meant to break me. There's no capability for it to actually break me because I have too much over here
mm,
that is rounding out my life.
yeah. Yeah, and you know, you talk about first of all, I mean, clearly you are a woman of courage and strength, and there's just all of that, right? That that's just so clear with you. And I think that, when you say that there's kind of the trust, right? There's the community, there's like, you're not alone in this. There's like, remember who you are. Um, and also the practical side of like, okay, let's get real about what things could look like. Um, and, you know, you talked earlier about the healing process, about what that looks like. Like, can you do it where you are? Do you have to leave to do that? And like, I think that people in general don't realize how much space is really needed for that.
Yeah.
Whether you're still grinding or you leave to create that space. Is that something that you were aware of? Like, did you know like this was like these experiences in this toxic environment would require that you took some time, or did you just really realize how much time you needed after the fact?
I think it was a little bit of both, right? I think it was a matter of knowing that there's definitely needs to be the change in how I interacted, even in the space that I was in while I was in it, as I was preparing to leave, right? Because there's some practicality and not showing up the next day and saying, oh yeah, I'm not coming in anymore. Like, you may not want to do that. So I actually thought about how can I operate and get my job done, right? Still fulfilling my duties because, once again, personal integrity, but yet removing myself out of some of the elements that were super toxic, like limiting interaction with certain people while I'm still working at the place that I was at. And I had to take those steps, like when I say that transition period was probably like 6 months from when I knew something was wrong and off to when I actually decided to leave. A lot of that was grieving process, because this is a job where it's like, I love a lot of the people here. I'm realizing there's a lot of elements that are just, difficult for so many people, not just me, right? I also know that some of this is what people decide to do on their own. It's the way they decide to operate. It has nothing to do with me, right? If it wasn't me, it would be someone else. So kind of realizing all of that, but then truly grieving that, because saying like, I showed up for this place every day. I gave this, rising star, all these awards, accolades. And then as soon as I speak up on something that's not right, it's like, oh, now I'm being made the villain because now I'm not playing buddy buddy anymore. And I mean, at the end of that, you just have to say, okay, well, this, there's things that just weren't for me here. And I have to learn for that. And I actually do have to grieve the aspects that I did love that I know I'm about to walk away from, and also realizing that the people that you love in certain places and spaces, there's some people where the relationships is more of a work relationship. So you may not encounter them all the time, but there are some people who are actually your true friends from this place, and you will have them after this place. You guys will maintain your relationship, and, it will be fine. So deciphering through that took some time for sure.
Yeah. And it's what there was something too that you said, because I remember when I left one of my positions, I was grieving actually the relationships that I thought were going to stick that didn't stick. And that was sad. It was like, oh, but I thought this was more than that. It was more than that to me, and it wasn't for the other person. So yeah, I think just honoring that there's a grieving process. It doesn't matter like how shitty you were treated or what's causing the departure, that the reality is like you had some things going on that you actually appreciated, whether it was like grieving the paycheck, grieving the people, grieving the, the opportunity to do the work that you care about, all that stuff. And we don't, I don't think people always realize that that's normal. It's like we have to normalize grief when even when we choose to leave something, that there's still grief in what's been lost.
Right. No, that's absolutely correct. That's spot on. And I think one of the things is also amplifying the things that you do enjoy
Mm.
about the environment, trying to amplify them while you're there. You know, those
Yes.
remaining months, it was like, okay, well, I know I don't want to have interaction in this way. But you know what? Over here, this interaction is great. And this always leaves
Right.
both of us walking away with a loving experience, even in the workplace. You know, it leaves us feeling very good,
Yeah.
and colleagues just working together, and those collaborations that are solid and very easy and very fruitful. Focus on those. You know, start to
Yes.
try to shift your perspective a bit as you're leaving, and because you know it's coming to an end, enjoy the stuff that you know you do enjoy, so you don't lose sight of that, even though you know it won't last. While
See,
you're
now
there, enjoy it.
let's just add, career coach to your list of transferable skills. But no, because like this is when I do work with folks from a career management perspective, so much of that is usually right there they're wanting to move on to something else, and we get energetically stuck with what's bringing us down, and so we have to have a strategy to say how are we going to get through the time, because there's practical realities and we can't just like step away and like, you know what I mean, like on a
Right.
dime maybe, right? So but yeah, like bringing out more of the good, and making sure you have a strategy for minimizing what's bringing you down, what's toxic, what's not serving you. um I
I
just want
think
to highlight that's such great advice.
Yeah, I think also another thing is to start to transfer the definition we were talking about purpose, right?
Yeah.
Start to transition that and activate that in your life. Because if you know you're at this place 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, and you're already grieving over here, find that one or two things you can do every day
Yes.
after work where you can start shifting that perspective. You can start
Yeah.
getting that fulfillment elsewhere, and it doesn't have to come from you in the office, right? So the thought goes back to the thought of our identity and our purpose is not our vocation. It's just a vehicle for us to actually amplify our purpose, right? Or to
Yes.
actually act out our purpose. So
Yes.
if you need to say volunteering somewhere, right? If you're a great strategist or organizer, you're great at communications, find your local community board. Do the comms for them so you have something else to do, so you're not fixated on what's happening at work. Find your outlet in your church ministry if you have one, your group of friends if you want to start. You know what? Each month I'm going to organize a dinner party because I want people to get together and just have a fun, good time, because I know that there's stressors of life. I'm experiencing stressors at work. So let me do this over here so I can create an environment for
Yeah.
people to have some fun and peace and just get together, right? So
Yeah.
find other avenues, other outlets, so that you're serving your purpose of being a connector, being a collaborator, having communication skills, all of that stuff. So that the heaviness that you're experiencing doesn't drag you down completely.
Mm. Yeah, and it's, when you talk about this, our superpowers, our skills, our transferable skills, I feel like we really have to get out of the job description pieces, the skills. We
Mm-hmm.
have to really think about it differently. We have to ask ourselves different questions, like one of the ones I ask, which kind of comes from Tara Moore, which is, if it was 1,000 years ago, what role would you be playing in the community?
Mm-hmm.
Just to
Yeah.
get out of the like, oh, I'm good at Excel. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're good at like organizing data, like, or you're good at like taking a lot of information in and making sense of it, or whatever these things are. But like, we have to get out of this resume mentality of what are our skills, our capabilities, and look at the broader piece of our lives. I think, whether you're a mom and you look at what skills you have as a mom,
Right.
or a dad or what have you, and what information is there for you also to discover what brings you joy, because I think people often forget, like they're just miserable and they're just like, I don't know what to do with my life. Nothing makes me happy. We just forget what brings us joy. Um, so, yeah, and Shige is asking, like, how do you find the energy to do other things, other activities post our 9 to 5, or who knows, maybe it's even 9 to 9 if we're not pulling back which is a whole
Yeah.
nother story. But yeah, like where does the energy come from if you're so depleted in your 9 to 5?
Honestly, it may be that one thing once a week. You could start small. This doesn't have to be every day after my 9 to 5. I need to create another 5 to 10 to balance out the other side of the equation. You don't have to go that far. You don't have to go that hard.
Yeah.
Um, you could also just say like that one thing that you do. Like if you like being outside and you enjoy your community, like honestly, join your park conservatory. They have get-togethers. I'm in Brooklyn, right? So Prospect Park, go over there and hang out, meet your neighbors, go to the park, help do a cleanup thing. They have sessions every weekend. You
Yeah.
could do one Saturday out of the month, but that's one thing that's not your work, that is also not taking up all of your time outside of your work if you're too tired. Or if, say, you're good at writing and you used to write all the time and you haven't done it in so long, buy yourself a nice journal, go grab a cup of coffee, go sit on a bench somewhere, or sit at home, sit on your couch and write. you know
Yes.
I see Eden saying she made a promise to work out 30 minutes each day. Exactly. Go walk, go be in your community, start saying hi to your neighbors,
Yeah.
right? Start actually
Yeah.
being an integral part of your community. Then you'll start to realize, oh, there's more people in my life than just the people at work. I have neighbors, I have friends, I have, you can do all of those things.
Yes, and I love that actually it also says, I got an Apple Watch, because
Yeah.
also we have to do things for ourselves. Like
Yeah.
when we're in the dump, like we have to give ourselves permission to give ourselves what we need,
Yes.
or what gives us a little bit of joy, and not deprive ourselves of that. But to find the light, to find the little cracks of light. And I love what you're saying, right? Which is just like, keep it small, okay? Like for you type A's out there, like it doesn't have to be all extra. It can just be find the thing because those little things just build
Yeah.
and they build and they create the momentum to give you the juice that you need to get through your day.
Exactly. Exactly. Those tiny things, those
Yeah.
tiny moments. If you cook dinner for yourself, make it great. Do your 3-course meal for yourself. Plate it well. Do these small little things that can bring you moments of joy where you're just like, oh, okay, I can create some joy in my life. This isn't that bad.
Yes, yes, and even, as we're coming like, through the pandemic, I always say out of, just like we're going through it still.
Yeah, you know.
I said to myself, I want to do things, that, or I'm getting out of the house because we're still not, there's no like work events, there's no like,
Right.
events that are like in person very much in New York. And so it's like, I need to like take advantage of being in New York, even though a lot of things aren't happening, that things are happening. So like I put a couple things on calendar. I'm going to Stacey Abrams tonight to hear her talk. I'm
Nice.
excited. Billy
Nice.
Porter and his book launch and doing that. So like, but these were things. And also what I'm finding is like, oh, and then I have a couple of weeks to be excited about it.
Yeah, there's something you're looking forward to,
Yes,
right?
yes. That it's
So there's
like,
there's that aspect of it as well. I have two friends, one who just had twins today, this morning.
wow, happy birthday to the
Happy
twins.
birthday, right? And another one who had a baby a week and a half ago, I want to say. But even that, right? So now I can go over and take a care package, of course, being careful and conscientious of being in a pandemic, but connect with your people,
Mm.
truly connect with your friends, community, even if it's just a couple of people that you go to a coffee shop with, you have that coffee lunch date, a week out from now. You can look forward to that. You can look forward to the talks. One of the greatest things I saw during this entire pandemic is at the very beginning, when everything was shut down and it was like nobody go out of their house, only if you have to go on an essentials run, is that I saw a lot of community come together. And for people who didn't know each other that well, it was such a beautiful thing to see. One of the purposes that a lot of people found was while they weren't working, they were able to actually take care of some of their neighbors. Like there were flyers that were plastered all around my community for Prospect Heights Community Group, where if elderly people needed someone to go do a medication run or a grocery run, like call this number, text this number, and literally a community tree was created by this person who just started organizing people to be mobilized and be able to help each other out. Those are those type of transferable skills that I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Like that is something so beautiful that helps so many people, where, you know, there were people who lost their jobs during the pandemic, but they were doing other things and they were finding fulfillment in other ways, despite the situation they were going through.
Well, and I feel like I'm channeling Oprah a little bit right now, but you know, I'm pretty sure one of the things she says, if you're feeling in the dumps, go be of service. You know, it's like, and I know that you volunteer and you do so much for community, and also like when we're in our own crap,
Yeah.
it can feel so good. And again, if you're depleted, right, sometimes you just need to go in and like find your inner strength. But sometimes if you just put yourself in a situation where you can be of service, like that can really support you too.
Right. And give you perspective.
Yeah.
Because you realize, like, wait, there's a whole world that's still happening. Life is still going on. People have lost jobs, gained jobs, transitioned jobs. Like, this has been going on for centuries and time again. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to be okay, you know?
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't feel like it, the truth is, I'm going to be okay. So then you can start to transition your feelings to the truth. So.
Woo. Yeah. I feel like, yeah, let's capture that right now. You're going to be okay in transition your feelings to the truth. I love it. So I can't believe we're already at the top, we're coming to the top of the hour. I know this is like, we totally needed part two. This is crazy. You know, and one thing I just want to like name and just, you know, for those of you who are watching now and in the future, right, what we're talking about, and it's been named, right, what we're talking about is toxic workplaces and places that don't honor who we are as individuals, racist environments, you know, places that are just not allowing humans to be humans. And so they do so much damage. And so if you are in those places where this is happening, my plea is for you to do the work, to be a part of the solution, because I think it's just travesty that people have to keep leaving these toxic places. You know, when you're in positions of power to make some change, go fucking do it. Sorry, pardon my language, but get out there. So that's my call to action for people, because you know, otherwise we're draining organizations of quality talent, which I think happens when you left that place of employment.
Yeah.
Clearly it wasn't for you, and you're thriving, and and it was part of your journey. But I guess, yeah, so that's one thing. And the other thing I just want to ask is, like, you know, we've talked about a lot of different things, and I just want to ask, like, if there is anything else that's weighing on you in your heart to share with people who are trying to figure out, you know, how to find that joy, how to honor their purpose. If there was anything else you wanted to share.
I would just say, through all the hurts and pains in any toxic environment or bad situations that you may be in, remember that not every place is like that. You know, remember that there are still some places that maintain their integrity or honor their employees. So if you're in a field or an industry that you do love, you do like what you do, know that you can end up in a better situation, right? And also know that forgiveness is a huge component of it. Like we were talking about earlier, is that, you know, you can either take the burn and the pain from something, but if you're only taking that, then you're going to miss out on the wisdom. You're going to miss out on the forgiveness. You're going to miss out on the love. You're going to miss out on even the fact that you can take what you've been through and use that as a catalyst for what you know not to be in environments, and flip that so you can show up differently. So you know you don't want to be what was done to you, but you want to actually be better. So, I mean, it goes back to the thought of being the change that you want to see in the world. So maintain your personal integrity, really, truly take the wisdom and the lessons. And, you know, the burning was par for the course. but you came out stronger for it. So
Oh, what a beautiful messages. Like this is one to like replay and replay. And ladies and gentlemen, you are available for speaking engagements, I believe. If you
oh,
want.
we can talk about it.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for your inspiration, for sharing your story. I know it's not easy when we go back and like remember some of these things that hurt. But I really am grateful for you to kind of walk through that with us and help us understand the messy middle for you and how you're on the other side of it and how you got through it. So I really appreciate it. And thank you for the audience who was just super engaging, and I could tell they were taking away a lot of your wisdom.
Oh, I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for having me on. And, everybody just keep walking in love. It'll be all right. It will be
Yes.
all right.
You'll be all right. Yes. And until next time, I guess I'm just gonna say ciao for now and thank you again.
Bye.
Bye.